professor in cartography and GIS science at the Ghent University, Belgium. In the next 20 minutes, I'd like to give you an overview on the research domain of location-based services. Most importantly, I would argue that there exists a location-based science, and this is the science behind location-based services. We're living in a mobile information society. Mobile devices are now ubiquitous in our daily life. And location-based services, in short, LBS, become very, very popular. People employ LBS for different applications, for example, navigation, entertainment, and so on. So what are location-based services? They are computer applications, typically mobile applications that deliver information depending on the location of the device and the user. And these have a lot of applications like navigation, social network, and city guides, and so on. So what is special about LBS? There are a lot of distinct characteristics of LBS compared to GIS and web maps applications. Firstly, in terms of users and tasks, users in LBS often have limited GIS expertise and often employ LBS to support their daily activities in space. And LBS are mostly often used in dynamic and mobile environments and through mobile devices. Also, another point is context awareness. So LBS applications are often aware of the context their users are currently in and can adapt the information and their presentation accordingly. And given that there's strong interest in location-based services, the International Cartography Association established a commission of location-based services since 2015. And the mission of this commission is to advance the research on LBS to enable anywhere, anytime, anyone and anything services. If you want to look at more about the commission, you can look at this website and you are invited to register as a member there. And one of the things the commission has done in the last several years is on working on the initiatives of developing research agendas for LBS. And in the next 10 minutes, I'd like to give you an overview on the results of these initiatives. We try to summarize the recent research trends in LBS, and we're looking at the state of the art, we find that there are several trends. The first one is that in terms of applications, we see there's a trend from navigation system and mobile city guide only to more diverse applications. For example, now we see LBS has been applied to social networks for gaming and or transportation or healthcare and so on. They become more ubiquitous. And we also look at the environment that in the past, a lot of LBS applications were for outdoor environments, but now we see that there's a transition to outdoor and mixed and indoor environments. And this is because there are a lot of research advantage in indoor positioning or indoor spatial data modeling. In terms of the mobile interfaces, we see that in the past, mostly map and audios are the often interface people use, but now there are a lot of new technologies like AR or wearables devices or smart glasses and so on. We see a trend towards non-intrusive and natural interface. So that means that people can get the information they want in a more natural way. And we also see a trend towards from location-based to context-aware, because there's more to context than locations. And there are a lot of smart environments which are available to allow us to model users' context and provide context-aware services to the users. And also because a lot of people are using LBS, this contributes a lot of data and to lead to a lot of location-based big data. And this kind of data will be something like GPS and Bluetooth tracking data, mobile phone data, and mobile cloud sourcing data or VGI or location-based social network data. And this has a lot of application on human perceptions or mobility, city dynamic, traffic, and so on. And also, on the other hand, they also help to improve LBS applications. And we also see that the interdisciplinary research become more important in the last several years. So from technology-oriented to interdisciplinary research. In terms of my own research focuses on three parts. The first part is human-centered LBS. So I focus on mobile cartography, for example, map and AR to provide LBS applications, and also context-aware adaptations. So develop methods to provide LBS to adapt it to users' needs and information in mobile context. And the second focus is on impact of LBS on our spatial abilities. For example, we studied the side effect of mobile navigation system, and we found that they're harming our spatial abilities. And the last part of my research focused on analysis of location-based big data to model people's spatial behavior and experiences. For example, people's emotions about the environment, and so crowdsourcing of parking places, and transportation mode and place modeling, and so on. Based on this state-of-the-art analysis, we see that there's a paradigm shift in LBS research, particularly from application or technology-oriented to science-oriented. And there's a pressing need to recognize and develop the role of science in LBS. Especially, a lot of people try to see what would be the key scientific questions that are generic to LBS rather than specific to particular application fields and technology. And I argue that based on this, I'll argue that there exists a location-based science or LB science. And this location-based science is the science behind location-based services or LBS, or in other words, the scientific knowledge on which LBS are based on. Just like geographic information science is for geographic information systems. And the study subject of LBS science is location-based information. And this is information relevant to a human user's or intelligent agent's location and context. And this is, there are several keywords here. We argue that the users of the LBS is not only about humans, but can be also intelligent agents. So this is something that will become more and more important in the futures. The first definition of LB science can be, so LB science is a scientific discipline that studies computational methods and social and ethical issues of deriving, modeling, communicating, and analyzing location-based information. And this is information relevant to human users of the intelligent agent's location and context. And by deriving, we mean we're based on ubiquitous positioning and context acquisitions. And by modeling, it means we computationally model or represent location-based information. Communicating is about converting location-based information to the users. And analyzing focus on extracting knowledge from location-based services, generated data, the data generated by LBS. As said, there are several key research streams in this LB science: ubiquitous positioning, context modeling, and adaptations, mobile user interface and interactions, evaluation methodologies, and analysis of location-based big data, social and behavior implications. Let's look at these six fields in a little more details. In terms of ubiquitous positioning, the aim is to provide positioning for anywhere, anytime, for anyone and anything. And currently, there are a lot of research on indoor and outdoor positioning. And the idea is to provide seamless indoor and outdoor positioning. And this kind of technology should be affordable, easy to use, and widely available. For the second one, context modeling and adaptations, the main aim is to identify relevant information that best fits a user's task and context. And for this purpose, we will need to model the geosocial environment and also model the users and their context. And then we need to do some data reasoning and filtering and adaptations. With this, we can get the relevant information. We can identify the relevant information to be communicated to the end users. And there are a lot of sub-questions here. For example, in terms of modeling of the geosocial environment, we will need to model the environment in a qualitative and quantitative way. And also, we might need to think about the model the environment not only for normal people, but also for visually or mobility impaired people. So, and in terms of modeling users and their context, the whole aim here is to contextualize locations, to have users profiling and task modeling activities recognition and predictions. And in terms of the data reasoning and filtering and adaptation here, the aim is to provide the develop techniques to provide personalization and context-aware applications. And after we identify the relevant information to be communicated to users, we need to communicate this to them. And this is the key topics of mobile user interface and interactions. And the key aim here is, the key question here is, how can relevant information be communicated to LBS users to support effective, efficient, and effective spatial temporal decision makings in mobile context? And given that there are a lot of new devices or new interface technologies coming out, another question here is, can we predict what design patterns or principles will work for this future technology? And the next field is on evaluation. So here, the aim is, how can we develop, how can a comprehensive framework beyond usability for LBS evaluation be developed? Consider user interface, user skills and properties, conditions, device, and the social environment and so on. It's also about how can lab-based and field-based evaluation be effectively combined in LBS research. And the next field is on analysis of location-based big data. As mentioned, LBS become very, very popular, and this generates a lot of data. And so this topic is focused on how can we analyze this kind of data. And this covers about the theory and data models of this kind of data, and the analysis of this kind of data, like considering the volume, velocities, and so on, this kind of data. And very, very important is that because a lot of data like this cover a lot of private or sensitive information, so we need to develop privacy-preserving and ethically aware data analysis and mining. And we stress that there are different levels of data analytics, and starting from descriptive analytics, so this is about what happens, and diagnostic analytics, this is why did it happen, and then the next step is predictive analytics, so what will happen, and the last one is prescriptive analytics, how can we make it happen, or how can we avoid something that not happens. So these are the different levels of data analytics of this subfield need to focus on. And the last part of this LBS science is on the social and behavior implication of LBS, because they have become more and more popular in our daily life. So it's important to understand the impact on our mobile life. For example, we need to look at the impact of LBS on our spatial abilities, and look at the geo-privacy, the trade-off between the service quality and privacies, and also the legal and ethical issues. We also need to develop guidelines and those best practices on addressing users' privacy and ethical concern in LBS. So to summarize, we believe that there exists a location-based science, and this is the science behind LBS, and there are 6 core research domains in this science. And this, I already give you a brief overview on this. So what will be the next step? We basically would like to challenge, or would like to ask the whole community to think about these questions. So is there really a LB science? And if yes, mostly yes. So what are the genetic questions that make up LB science, independence from the specific application fields and technology? And also, what is the core boundary of LB science? How does it differ from other scientific disciplines like GI science? And as mentioned, we'd like to make this as a joint activity for the broader LBS research communities. We would like to organize workshop, panel discussion, and special issue to discuss all these points. Okay, by focusing on the scientific questions of LBS, we can better enable 4A services, like anywhere, anytime, and for anyone and anything services. And then we can also positively shape the future of our mobile information societies. With this, I'd like to thank you. And as I mentioned, I've argued that there really exists a science in LBS. And by focusing on this, we can focus on the scientific questions which are independent from the application domain and technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Haosheng, for excellent talk. I hope you can hear us.
Yes. I do.
Excellent, excellent. So we have now about 10 minutes for discussion. If we already have a couple of questions here, so I think I can start with the discussion. So the first question is from myself, is that so as you mentioned, location-based services or location-based science is moving from location-based to more context-aware analysis, modeling, and so forth. So is it already possible with the current technologies and the infrastructure, or is it needed to have 5G? What is your take?
Yeah. For me, I guess we are now already on the way to context awareness. And there are a lot of sensors, a lot of smart environments, which help allow us to model what the user is doing and what the interest of the users. And also, as I mentioned, we also have a lot of data to model about the geosocial environment, what are happening surrounding about the users. So I would argue that we have a lot of contextual information already beyond locations. And I would argue that probably in the future, there will be more and more sensors, and this sensor will be going deeper into about, for example, more information about users' interest or basically about people's cognitive states and so on. So there will be a smarter services. I think we are already here. A lot of data already here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, indeed. And perhaps it's a continuation. So in your slide 28, I hope we can have it open, where you have a nice chart on different level of data analysis. If you remember the chart and
right.
So, what do you think? Where are we at the moment on this scale? I think this is not the right slide here open at the moment.
So you need to go several slides back. Yeah, yes. Yeah, but I can mention that I think that the point there is that there are different stages of data analysis. We go from describing what had happened probably in the past, and then we try to understand. Then the second stage is why this happens, and then is about the next step is to predict. So what might happen in the future, and the last step is okay. If I predict something bad that might happen, how can I avoid that?
Yeah.
And I would argue that these four stages are very, very interesting. And a lot of people focus on basically the first one or the second one. And many people now looking at the first one as well. But the last stage we are still not there because it's very, very complicated. We need a lot of simulation model. And it's not only about technology, but also about a lot of policy makings and a lot of other things. So I would argue that we are at the third stage, and they will be better that we can continue up at the last stage, because this is something that we can basically better shape the future of our society.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Then we have another question from the listener side. So the question is such: so who could be the neutral data mediator of such kind of ubiquitous personal mobility monitoring, data processing, and communication, considering personal data privacy? Yeah,
I think this is a tricky question because now data privacy is really an issue, and even we have some law to guideline to define what would be the limits. But what I feel is that now, for example, think about Google or some other big companies, they have our data, and they basically they have some policy or something that we can follow to see whether how they use our data. But the point here is that there's no basically governance to track whether this kind of big company are using our data in a way that what they describe. So I argue that the government should play a role here, and also some AGOs play a role here to define some guidelines how we deal with basically this kind of data. And on the other hand, we also need to train, we need basically education the general public about this kind of data, because a lot of people still are not aware of these kind of issues. And probably it's our task as well as an academic society to provide some suggestions or guidelines. And basically at the end, some NGO and also together with some policy makers, they need to come up with some solutions or platforms to support this kind of data management.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, it means that we have a lot of work to do with the policymakers. And so, do you see a future of LBS in the context of GDPR?
Yes. Now this is an interesting point because now privacy, as I mentioned, is very interesting and also complicated issues. And in LBS research, actually there are some people, I think from Münster, from Germany, they are doing research on to see how to develop some guidelines on, okay, if you want to develop LBS applications, and how do you make it legally fine? And they provide some guidelines about how should you communicate, how should the interface should be designed to communicate your privacy policy to the users, and how to better address this. And so that people also start to look at this because if they want to have their applications, they need to make sure that it's legally fine and acceptable by the society. And these are all complicated issues people need to think about. And I hope that in the future there will be more and more LBS applications which can consider these kind of things and make it more acceptable by the general public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for your answer. I think it's a topic to discuss. So also a bit related to that. So I may got the wrong impression from your talk, but it seems that the core of LBS science is about providing location-based services and applications for at the agent level. So for users, for customers, for non-human agents, so to speak. But how this could contribute more societally broader level and provide, let's say, public good. For example, for planning or governance. Do you see how this could benefit?
Yes, I think you mentioned a good point that, in fact, location-based services, I see the aim is to provide relevant service or relevant information to the users. And the point I argue here is that the location-based science is a bit broader because on the one hand, we provide services to support people's daily activities and so on, and also not about general people, but also about the cities and a lot of things. And on the other side, basically these kind of services also provide a lot of data for the general public to understand how the city is moving and how can we actually model the city and also provide some social goods to the people and so on. So I think that the whole aim of kind of open this up to location-based science is that with this, basically, the point I try to argue is that there are a lot of people are working on not only about services, but a little broader to see how this kind of location-based data can be used for the society, not only about human individual users, but also for the general public or the cities.
Yeah. And then actually the question of privacy and surveillance arises. So, but yeah, thank you. We have an interesting question from our Q&A side. So, indeed, thinking now about the COVID situation. So, what do you think? How this kind of social disruption and everything what is now happening is or will be changing the field of LBS?
Yeah, that's a very good question because now already, as Gail mentioned at the beginning, that actually we are doing some research on kind of context tracing. And you can see that when we look at basically how people use mobile devices, there are a lot of people try to think how we can use this one to stop the COVID-19. And this can have a lot of applications like context tracing, or maybe can lead to some mobility data for us to understand how this kind of how COVID-19 impacts whole societies and so on. On the other hand, you can see that, so put it like this way, I guess you can see that COVID-19 really provide us a good chance to think about how mobile technologies can help us better to benefit our life. And on the other hand, you can also see that look at context tracing is from the technology perspective is not that complicated that it seems, but from the society perspective, it's very complicated because it's not only about how we make it work, but also it's about whether people will accept this or not. So it's basically about, as I mentioned, about social and ethical issues at the end. So that gives us, I guess, this gives us a strong indicators that in the future, if we want to make the LBS work or make mobile applications, we not only need to think about the technology, but also more think about basically about some social aspect. So whether this will be accepted by the people or not.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Haosheng, was really nice to virtually meet you, and thank you once more for your excellent talk and interesting discussion that we had for the last 10 minutes. Unfortunately, our time is now up, so we have to close. But yeah, so thank you, and I'm waiting to see you in person.